Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'll tell you a little bit. Explain what Veep is. I had never been to an HR tech conference before. Now, I've run large organizations, and I've always believed and had the best success with really including HR business partners, really as partners throughout the entire planning process. I kind of walking away, I was having one conversation. Your department, that function is really transforming. I mean, it's kind of amazing. And to me, the way that I thought about it is the veil between external, what happens outside of the company, and internal within your company. You guys are the ones that are kind of bridging the gap, right? We've heard a lot about transformation, and it's not for the faint of heart. So at Veep, we recognize that, and that's one of the areas where we think we can help. Now, what is Veep? Let me just real quick, who knows, besides my boss and our lead sales guys from the industry, who knows what earned wage access is? Okay, a few people, right? So think about it, right? The earned wage access is I get paid every 2 weeks. I'm a visiting nurse. My car breaks down. I'm not getting paid for another 10 days. I need to get the car fixed. I've already earned some hours, and we make sure that the visiting nurse gets access to her pay, and she can get the car fixed and move on, right? That's it in its simplest form. So I've been in banking, financial services, fintech for about 30 years, right? And I've seen many attempts at solving this problem. And we wrap it up in financial wellness, right? So you can look at the stats and there's stress. Employees are stressed. And this is the first product I can actually say. I've been with the company for 6 months. And as I looked into it, I said, I'm not sure I've seen a product that can actually solve this problem, that can actually make a difference. And let me tell you why I say that, right? Because financial wellness is this big, beautiful thing we talk about. But I tell people this is the analogy I give them. If I'm having a heart attack, don't start telling me right there about how great a low cholesterol, low fat diet is. If you don't get me to the hospital and fix my problem, I'm not going to have to worry about creating a healthy lifestyle. So we feel like, listen, the first step in financial wellness is making sure we can stop the stress. And that's what people need. You know, hardworking people just need access to their funds, and that's what we enable. And that's the first step. And that's one of the things that I really loved about it. Then we can kind of get into how do we kind of make some improvements for financial wellness. But people need help. So our mission was kind of founded around, just a little bit more. So Veep is actually part of a larger private equity group called Black Dragon Capital. So we have experience with all kinds of banking products. And the one kind of key thing, these are our 3 kind of mission statements, if you will, but we feel, our job is to stop this payday lending cycle problem. Our founder has been very philanthropic, lots of charities. I think it's that experience where he really saw how exacerbated the problem was. And I've had some conversations with people around here, right? So we have to create a vehicle that has financial security, doesn't keep adding on more debt, creating more problems, really empower the employee, the individual, but we think there's a way to do it where we're a partner and we're truly supporting the employers who are doing this. And as you learn about earned wage access, there's a lot of different ways to do it, interestingly enough. We really want to provide a benefit to the employer who can then pass it along to the employee. So that's our mission, really stop the payday lending, get a benefit into the hands of employers so they can drive more engagement and more satisfaction with employees. So what do we do that's different? Well, we just white label everything. If no one ever knows who Veep is, we're super, super happy. So I mentioned at the beginning, I joined this company for two reasons. The one I talked about was I haven't come across a product that can actually help solve the problem. And the other reason I got involved in it is because, and we say this all, I love partner businesses. I love partnering with companies, finding ways to move things forward, doing it at a low-cost way. It's your brand. You know, you have the relationship. We're not trying to get into your business. We're just facilitating the earned wage access. We provide the infrastructure. And I talked to someone in HR, and you guys know this better than I do. And I said, well, why don't payroll providers just do this, you know, themselves? And she scoffed at me. She said, well, no one wants to run payroll every day. That's a lot of work. So, and then the bell, I go, well, that's an obvious thing that I completely missed, right? So you know, it's your brand. We provide the infrastructure, and it's really zero friction. One of the things is the way you do this is there's hard ways to do it, and there's way lower friction ways to do this. And my intention would never be getting into the technical details here, but it's pretty simple. So we can kind of get the program up and running pretty quickly around that. Now, how does it work? Again, won't get technical. But coming from large banking systems, and most of us are all ex-fintechs and bankers, we know how to kind of connect seamlessly to systems. And a payroll system is very much like a core banking system, right? So it's very seamless for us to connect to an ADP, a Workday, especially now more than ever. We can get into time and attendance systems. So connecting to a workforce management platform is really easy for us. You know, and that's really pretty seamless kind of connectivity. This is an API world. That's about as technical as I get. So you say, what is your specs to connect to your stuff? We say, great, here's our specs, and we kind of do that. It's really easy. What we know is that we cannot ask employers and companies to reallocate resources to a new product. We know how friction-filled that is. So that's one of the things we kind of set out to do, right? So it's really seamless. It's real-time access. Behind the scenes, earned wage access is a payment. And we're payments people at heart. We've built some of the biggest payment systems that you would know of, including our friend Zelle. So a bunch of us have already built all of that, right? So think about it. Somebody wants access to their money. They have two options. They can have it via ACH, where it gets in 1 to 3 days. But what most people do is they say, listen, I want it right now. Instantly, it goes to their debit card. So it's that seamless. I'm eligible for $200. I'm going to click push. Shows up in their account. That's our infrastructure. We handle all of that. That's the thing that is probably the most complicated out of what we do. Maybe the second most complicated of what we do. Now, the third thing we built and will continue to build out is we call it an AI risk engine. We also refer to it as a wellness engine, but one of our operating partners, you know, people in the company, has built things like the early fraud detection systems, right? So I think it was in the city presentation this morning, the question was, what have you seen in other industries that can be transferred into the HR industry? And we look at bank data and behavioral data around how people spend money as something that it's a simple model, simple. And you can look at it one of two ways. You can say, On the banking side, we want to look at the risk associated with a loan. In this world, we want to say, how do we let employers responsibly make earned wages available and also create an environment or a score that helps the employee understand where they can go, how well their financial wellness could be, what other products or tools they could put in play. Again, if we go back to what I said earlier, if you're going to get somebody to change their behavior, you have to solve the problem. And so we have this vision of you can't just let folks get access to money. It has to be done responsibly, and it has to be done in a way that allows them to kind of prosper. So that's really kind of a high level what's behind that engine, and it's kind of sophisticated because the more and more, if you know anything about neural networks, the more and more traffic we go through, the more and more predictability we can provide back to the employer about the employee base as a whole, right? The last thing is we call bank grade processing. In our model, right, again, I had mentioned earlier that if we go to an employer and we say, listen, we need 3 months of your resources and you got to put 4 engineers on it and 2 project managers, I'm not sure I'll make it out of, I might be as far as I can get before I'm walked out of the door. The other thing about earned wage access is it takes money. You have to set aside money, right? So if you think about it, the way I tell people, for every 10,000 transactions, that's about $1.2 to $1.5 million. We, as Veep, actually supply that capital. So the employer does not have to put aside working capital in order to fund the program. So when I say it's low friction, low cost, these are the types of things that I mean, right? So that's really what we do when we're behind the scenes, but we're doing all of that stuff. And then the reconciliation back to the HRIS system, how to make sure that we invoice you correctly during the pay cycle when we reconcile the pre-funding. That can be completely automated, or 1 or 2 of our customers do semi-automated. It just depends on your HR operations process. We can be pretty flexible around that. But we've been doing that for years, right? So we're in this kind of great position where I think we acquired the business maybe a couple years ago. Most of us have come in within the past year and kind of repointed the business towards this particular model, making sure that it scales and it's kind of low friction. So that's just a little bit more about our risk engine. Is that, like I said, it's a responsibility thing the way we look at it, making sure that the employer is in control, and then we have visibility into how the employees are using it. So we call it a dual layer. You define, what eligibility looks like, and you can create different segments. If you have salary employees, you can have these set of parameters. If they're hourly employees that get paid, twice a month, you can have these sets of parameters. If you're teachers, they only get paid once a month. If that's a segment, you can kind of segment them out. So, and then as the volume goes through, the engine learns more and more and more. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to avoid is somebody getting sick again, right? That's what we're trying to avoid. They were sick. Charles got me to the hospital. Now Charles wants to put me on a low cholesterol, low fat diet. I may be cheating. I may cheat again. So how do we kind of help and predict that and do that in a very, very, very transparent way, right? Now, the cost side of this is almost little to no cost to the employer outside of platform setup. The employee just pays a small transaction fee. Now, typically, you from a compliance perspective, you have, hey, you have a free option and you have a fee option. 88% of the employees active on our system pay $3 to $5 to get it same instantly into their account, right? But you want to manage all of that. You want to make sure you're clear on how folks are using it. And so that's kind of what we built from, we call it the AI risk engine, but I call it the EWA controls, the EWA wellness score. And what's interesting about it is, the concept around it is you just pick a score, 0 to 100, 75 is better than 67. Well, what does that really mean? Well, that's kind of where we sit with you in the onboarding process, and we say, what do you want it to mean? Do we want to steer employees this way if it's in a certain range? Do you want to give them, certain pieces of education material if it's in this range, right? In this range. We're not necessarily in the business of building all that content now, but we're in the business of helping you understand how people are working with EWA service. So we see that as something that's pretty unique and that we really get excited about. Now, the things I want you to take away with, right, our partners, again, we love partner businesses. We want them to make money. So if you're a workforce management company, we give you a flat rate, and you can pass on some of the cost. You can, generally the margin markup is maybe 30 to 50%. It's a great way to not just provide and expand your product set, but you can put some real revenue behind it, right? If you're an employer, one of our employees or one of our employers, they eat the cost. They look at it as this is a benefit I'm providing. Now, they put some controls in place so it doesn't get so employees aren't taking 5 a month, right? That's part of the risk engine and in the control setup. But they eat the cost. You can charge, you can eat percentage of it, some of it, none of it. It's completely configurable. So it's really, really up to how you want to monetize it. And I use the word flexible monetization because monetization could be for you like it is for a lot of people. Listen, it costs a lot to retrain people. So if I got to spend $15 a year on this type of program per employee, which is generally about 20 to 30% of the employees will use it, that kind of makes sense. Or you can pass the cost along. It's pretty flexible. I mentioned low lift deployment. I mean, there's very, very little that you have to do technically. What we also do, because we love partner programs, is we actually have built out a partner onboarding, right? The key to this is to be able to get the organization to understand the benefit, communicate it out to the employees. It's like anything. You've got to put some effort behind it. We kind of built a partner enablement toolkit. And that's kind of what we work with our partners on or employers on, and we say, listen, this is something that's worked, and you guys have seen these before. This is the framework. This is what we can roll out. Again, if I go back to, if I had to ask your marketing department to now put together a whole nother program from the beginning, it's a lot of work. So we really want to make this as low friction as possible. I mentioned the enterprise grade. The thing that we also do not do, we do not hold sensitive data. We don't hold any of that. We don't want any sensitive data. Now you're saying you're in the payments business, you're in the card business. Well, the payment stuff sits in a PCI, grade, totally compliant infrastructure. We're not housing any data. It's a real simple, we take the transaction, we keep a profile, and we pass it on. And when you do have to make a transaction, that's done in a PCI environment if you know the payments landscape. We don't hold any data. And we don't sell any data. And so the risk engine that will use data, that's completely like anonymized. There's no value we're creating other than being able to go to our clients and say, hey, this is how the business is performing. And this is how we can kind of use it to improve the performance, or this is some things we have to watch, right? And the last, again, the enterprise grade, we handle all of the hard stuff. It's incredibly difficult to move millions and millions of dollars around on a monthly basis. And, but we take care of all that. I mean, we've been doing it forever. And that's one of our value propositions. And this is an employer first approach, right? So it is, and this is why I start off with like, the one thing, it's like, one of the themes that I'm hearing over and over again is how do we help our employees? If our employees are stressed, you know, a buddy of mine said to me, you know, we have a banking product, and he says, well, John, I'm never going to use this. I said, well, of course you're not, because you're on your back nine and you're pretty settled. But that's not America. And we actually have reached it. We have, our portfolio company is pretty big. We're in Europe, Latin America, and the US as well. But the employer first approach is, again, our mission is to be a partner. Our mission is not to own a payroll company. It's not to own WFM products. It's not to do anything other than provide EWA for employers and our partners to offer to their clients, to ultimately get into the hands of the employees, to stop this payday lending cycle, and really create an environment where someone can actually remove the stress and now focus on wellness. Because I don't know about anyone else in the room, but I can't focus on wellness if my arm is broken. I just need I need a cast. So, you know, we're around. We'd love to learn more about how we could help. We'd love to explain more about what we do. And if there's one thing I leave you with, it's we do this because we think it makes a difference. And we're kind of committed to that. So I'll stop there, see if there's any questions. Yeah.
I'll say I do like this option. Our Nevada locations are heavily impacted by the tragedy of the state of Illinois.
Yeah.
Really a problem. You were talking about the connectivity with the HR platform. So do you already have 360 integration with the major companies?
Yeah, there's two ways to do it. You can go direct to them, or you can go through. The answer is yes, and we can get there one of two ways. Actually, we just found a third way to get there. Yeah. So the answer is yes. Yeah. What we're finding is they ask for us to connect into time management systems, right? Because that's where the hours are being calculated. And again, HR is not simple, as you guys know. So the way we've built it is how you want to calculate your earned wages is highly configurable and customizable, right? So you could have one set of parameters for Nevada, another for Miami, whichever you would want. Yeah. And again, the whole idea of the risk model we've built out, or the engine, or the wellness engine, is to help employers start slow, right? We like to say, let's crawl, then we'll walk, and then we'll run. We're going to go from there. Anything else? All right. We'll learn more, and you guys have a lot of work to do just in general, so smile when you're doing it. All right, thank you.